Liberals take ableism and ageism as substantial moral categories, while conservatives, I think, are just as likely to mock these moral classifications as to revere them. So for the liberal, right, I see Daily Beast noting, reporting on anyone's old age requires extreme sensitivity. I don't think that. I don't feel that. But someone in public life, right, I don't feel like you have to use any sensitivity with regard to their old age, because there's no such moral category as ageism or ableism. Right? It would never occur to me to exercise sensitivity in reporting on a public figure's old age. To me, and I've written this often on my blog, if a public speaker looks like he is dying of AIDS, I note in my report that he looks like he's dying of AIDS. But for liberal commentators, right, ableism and ageism are very real moral categories that they don't want to fall into. So this particular liberal hero system is completely foreign to me. And you can never think straight about anything that you regard as sacred. And so if you regard the sin of ableism and ageism as a sacred sin, then you're not going to be able to think straight about it. So I Googled Trump unfit for public office, and most of the arguments boil down to moral and psychological disqualification, often referencing the diagnoses of experts who haven't examined Donald Trump, but they've got PhDs. When I Google Biden unfit for public office, I get visceral answers that are primarily physiological. So conservatives tend to trust their instincts. Liberals tend to trust expertise. So I was wondering, what does Ronnie Goldman say about this in his great work in progress, Conservative Claims of Cultural Oppression? And I couldn't figure out a handle on how to dive into the book. Where in this book can I find the magic decoder ring for this Joe Biden story, and why conservatives were able to see the truth here so much more quickly than liberals? So here is what I figured out is just put in common sense, right? Liberals, common sense, conservatives, vis-a-vis common sense. So I just looked for every version of common sense in his book. But I need to take a quick break.
There's a lot there to say. I think Israel will go to war against Hezbollah. It's just a matter of when. I think that the Israeli leaders, decision makers, would much prefer not to go anytime soon. They are winding down the war in Gaza. They're actually doing much better in Gaza than the international press would have you believe. Every one of the predictions by the Biden administration about what would happen in Israel's war in Gaza, which is a defensive war, a war in response to October 7th, virtually every one of their predictions has been wrong. They are quite effective, yet Israeli decision makers and military leaders do not want to fight a two-front war. So they want to wind down the war in Gaza before they go against Hezbollah in the north. Now, the challenge is there are tens of thousands of Israelis who live near Israel's northern border with Lebanon who have not been at home since October 7th. They're moving.
And the chat says, hey, Luke, buy silver and gold. What's more important than buying silver and gold? Buying time, finding time to build up your connections with your friends and your family and your community.